everyone. We're going to be starting in about 15 minutes. 15 minutes, please. Can I get all the candidates down front, please, so we can get everybody seated and set and ready to go? Thank you. We're going to start in about 7 minutes. Can I get all the candidates down front, please, to get seated and mic checks? Thank you.
trick question, I call them.
Down, 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 the stomach through. Round, round, round for headache too. With Alka-Seltzer you'll surely say relief is just a swallow away.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good cow.
If you've got the time, we've got the beer. Miller tastes too good to hurry through. But when it's time to relax, Miller stands clear. Beer after beer. If you've got the time, we've got the beer. If you've got the time.
I've already scratched out the numbers.
We're going to start in about 10 minutes. Apologies for that. I thought it was 5:30 start, but apparently it was a 5:45 start, so we're going to start at 5:45. We're going to start in 5 minutes. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go live in about 1 minute, so if everybody wants to take their seats, that'd be great. Everybody stand by, 30 seconds. Doug will be coming to you. $15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Doug, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Jones. I'm the CEO of Ignite Atlantic, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. I just wanted to welcome everybody to the Acadie-Annapolis Federal Candidates Forum here in Yarmouth. Before we begin, we'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge that the people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years, and we honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who came before us to this land. So tonight we're really thrilled to to welcome the candidates here to share their thoughts and answer some of our pressing questions. It's a very important conversation the way our world is today, so certainly we appreciate your time and efforts here. This event is proudly organized by the Yarmouth and Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're incredibly grateful for our event sponsor, the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors, for help making this possible. We're here to hear directly from candidates who are looking to represent you in Ottawa on the issues that matter most to our region, our businesses, and our future. So just before we begin, I'd like to welcome each of our candidates, maybe give a wave for those that may not know who you are. I'm sure you've visited every house in the region over the last little while. And we've got these nicely color-coded microphones for everybody so we can kind of distinguish between the parties. So first I'd like to welcome from the Conservative Party, Chris Donchma. If you can give a little wave. And next to Chris, representing the Liberal Party, is Ronnie LeBlanc. And from the NDP party, we have Ingrid Dion. And from the Green Party, we have Matthew Piggott. So welcome. So just so everybody's aware of the format for tonight, I'll be initiating questions for each of the candidates, but we'll go in different orders. So I'll start with one, and I'll call on the next person to answer. Each candidate is given 90 seconds for their response, and there's a timer. So we'll kind of cut you off after the thoughts, but I'll give you a wave. I'll try not to be cutting you off mid-sentence, but we'll try and keep it short and to the point. And then everybody will have a chance on the panel to answer the question. Okay. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with Ronnie here, and then the same question's going to be offered up afterwards. So I'll call on the next candidates after that. So to start with, just on the topic of the economy, which seems to be front and center these days, as you know, our area is focused heavily on the fishery. What does your party see as the best potential opportunities for the Acadie-Annapolis region for future economic growth?
Well, I think essentially, as we all know, fishery is a huge part of this riding and this economy. We are a resource-based export economy, so the tariffs are certainly going to have a bigger impact, I'd say, in this riding than maybe others, because it generates most of the business opportunities and spin-offs from the fishery, from farming, from forestry. So I think the challenge going forward is to try to diversify the economy, value added. Companies like Ignite, I'll put a plug for Doug, but businesses like Ignite and innovation, I think that's the way you have to move that forward. Okay. But I think right now we're in a very difficult situation because business needs certainty, and there's a lot of uncertainty around what's happening with Donald Trump in the States. So the challenge is for us, and this is why it's such a consequential election, is that basically we have two candidates, and the election is to decide who is best to deal with Donald Trump, to deal with the challenges around tariffs, and I'd say economic attack on our sovereignty and on our country. So I feel quite confident that in the Liberal Party with Mark Carney, who is an economist and who has he's a pragmatist and a centrist. I think he can come up with solutions to deal with what's going on here. But certainly, the resources in this riding are the main driver, and we have to protect those.
Okay, thank you. Chris.
Thanks for that question. I mean, ultimately, everything that happens in Southwest Nova Scotia is because of a strong lobster fishery. And we need to have clarity on what's happening in our fishery, how we're going to be managing our fishery, and what is the stability of the stock that we actually have swimming in the waters just off of us. If we talk to our friends who are fishermen, who are out there, they're having trouble. They're not catching as much as they're normally used to doing. So we have a challenge on the base of what makes everything in Southwest Nova Scotia go round. So we have to have a government that is more respective to what that stock is doing and how we're actually going to be taking on the issue of unreported fishery that's happening from one end of this riding to another. The second part of that is, of course, the tariffs. We need to understand exactly what is happening in the States, what they're actually going to be asking of us, because there is no clarity around that. And we need to have better clarity so businesses can actually make their decision. We have to be strong in how we push that forward. And I believe what we're trying to pull forward is a number of science-driven pieces to make sure that, again, our fishery is here for future generations, because this thing's important for kids from one end to the other to look at a possibility to go forward. We have ESDC, of course, that are here today, some students that are here watching this. I think it's important for their future that we protect the industry that has protected us for so many years.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Matthew.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll just introduce myself. I am Matthew Piggott, and the Green Party candidate here. It's a pleasure to be here. We're in a difficult situation here, and what I want to mention as a Green Party candidate is the world has changed. It's changed in the last 3 months, and it's changed quickly. Elbows up for sure, but I think all the options have to be on the table. What you'll hear from the Green Party today and throughout this campaign is, I hope, some new ideas that spark your interest on the green economy, fair taxation, affordability, and housing. Yeah, it is a different world right now, and one idea I want to leave you with is that we invest in a clean power grid so we can get power from Newfoundland, Quebec, and other places. I know the cost of energy is difficult, but there's a role for government to play in lowering the costs for individuals in their house. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ingrid.
So as most of you know, our economy in this riding has traditionally relied on fishing, farming, forestry, and tourism as well. I'm a local business owner. I understand the challenges and opportunities in our region. I started my social media marketing agency and deliberately headquartered it here in Yarmouth to create jobs and bring a new industry to this area, so to diversify the economy a little bit. I'm proud to employ 5 people, hopefully more soon, 4 of whom are right here in Yarmouth. And I could have chosen to have my business anywhere, and I could have chosen to hire a team remotely anywhere. But I'm passionate about creating jobs and hiring locally here. The heart of any economy is the working people, and under both the Liberals and the Conservatives, the powerful and the wealthy are the ones who keep getting ahead while the rest of us are falling behind. So as your NDP representative, I want to focus on growth that works for you and your family, so you can have a chance to get ahead. We have a plan to create a Buy Canadian and Build Canadian program. We'll also fight for every job, including jobs in the public sector. And I've shown through my business that creating local opportunities is possible, even in rural areas, because I believe that we should have an economy that serves everyone, not just the powerful and the wealthy.
From anybody on that? Okay, I lucked out, yeah. So just this kind of leads off of, or follows some of the comments you made. We're only a few months into a 4-year term for the U.S. President Donald Trump, and already his tariff strategy may be catastrophic for some small businesses and definitely a challenge for others. So if your party is elected, what can we expect from the Canadian government on the short and the long-term strategy to deal with Trump and his tariffs? And I'm going to give it to Ingrid to start.
Awesome. Just one moment here. Apologies. So I'm confident in my leader, Jagmeet Singh. I know a lot of people talk about how Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre will stand up to Trump, but Jagmeet Singh has stood up to bullies his whole life. He grew up and took care of his brother. He raised his brother. He lived a life with a father with addiction. Much like I've stood up to a lot of adversity in my story. 11 years ago, I was a single mom working 3 jobs while living under the poverty line, and I have shown what resilience and struggle can do for someone. So we need someone who really is truly passionate about solving those issues, and that's one thing that the NDP is really great at. When times get hard, we stand up for you and your family. So we have a plan to not cut programs like the Conservatives have done, and we also won't ignore communities. We want to support workers through the tariffs. We want to safeguard jobs, make some meaningful reforms to EI so that people have support when they need it, and also put in place measures that protect families from the added costs of tariffs.
Okay, thank you. Ronnie.
So as I mentioned earlier, we are a resource-based export economy. So obviously the tariffs are going to have a huge impact on this area. And we are facing tariffs from China as well. So that creates a lot of uncertainty around the seafood sector. So in the short term, the government has put in place a $450 million fund for the RDAs across the country. And for us, the RDA that would be managing that portfolio would be the ACOA. So ACOA is very strong and knows the business climate and sector in Nova Scotia. And their role would be to support small and local businesses, the industries, to make sure they survive this short term. But in the long term, I think the approach from the government and Prime Minister Carney is to make Canada more self-sustaining, to build an energy superpower, to create trade corridors, to lift federal interprovincial trade barriers. I think he committed to doing that by July 1st, which should have some impact here on Nova Scotia. And I know the provincial government has been pushing this quite hard. So I think that the aspect of a long-term 4-year plan is that investments in critical infrastructure, trade, diversification, and I think that's what Mark Carney and the federal government would bring to the table.
Okay, great. Matthew.
Well, I guess this is the question where you mention other people in your party, so I'm going to mention well-respected Nova Scotian, our co-leader Elizabeth May, voted the hardest working parliamentarian. Look, it's a tough world out there. We're going to need hardworking people who can work across party lines to get things done. This is what Greens do. We've seen that example from Elizabeth May, but also from someone who personally inspires me, which is Green MP in Kitchener Centre, Mike Morris, who I worked with for some time. On the global scale, look, it doesn't feel like a warm and fuzzy relationship with our neighbor. We're going to have to find some new friends, and there will be other opportunities in the world, but it's long term. In the short term, the Green Party announced this week that we would like to create strategic reserves of Canadian resources, such as lumber. I'm going to put that out there and see how that lands with people, but I think every option is on the table.
And Chris.
Well, since we're mentioning everybody here, Pierre Poilievre has been clear and pragmatic with it. Canada will not be pushed around. Let's not be pushed around, but let's also take those issues that we've been being left out over the last 10 years of not taking care of our economy, not doing the things and making us a strong country so that we can push back when we're being pushed, which is kind of what's happening right now. We don't have the 2 legs to stand on right now because of the weakness of the economy today, that we need to be able to push back on those things. We need to renegotiate the trade agreement with the U.S. to, the weakened Kuzma agreement that we have today. We need to go back to the table and make sure that it's done in strength for Canadians. Launch a business liquidity support program so that those industries that are going to be affected by this are going to have a mechanism to stay liquid so that they can actually be there when things will be better in a few years. but we can't. Sovereignty is important to us. We need control over our borders and fresh water. We need to take care of the automotive industry. But we cannot be negotiating away our currency, our land, our skies, our culture, our official languages, because that's what makes us Canadian.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttals?
Talkative bunch today.
Hearing none. Yeah. This is what makes us Canadian. We don't like thank you for that. Just moving on to something that's really important across the country, but we see it here in our region, is housing. And just to start on that topic is public housing, and even just affordable housing for the working class Canadians, is a premium. If elected, what is your party's plan to encourage more development in urban and rural areas alike? Will any new development plans include a component for affordable housing? And we'll start this one with Matthew.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I mean, it's the story of my generation. You came out of university with $40,000 in debt, and then what were you supposed to do? If you haven't found housing in some way, you're fortunate. It's quite different from my parents' or my grandparents' generation. And yet, the Green Party believes that housing is a right. Full stop on that. Now the question is, how do we make that right a reality? We're going to get started at this. There is a role for the federal government, first of all. I've seen the proposals from the different parties. I think we can unite and find consensus on this. The money is there, it can be spent. But what next? Well, if public money is being used to build affordable housing, there needs to be long-term covenants in place so that that affordable housing that is built once is affordable for the long term. More involved in our rental sector. That is part of what's keeping the rents up. And if the rents go up in Halifax, they go up here too.
Thank you. We'll come over to Chris.
No, thanks for that. I mean, everybody deserves a home, period. And what we've been seeing over the last number of years is prices and rents doubling, tripling, in some mix of both, where we do have a fair amount of homeowners, young folks that are trying to build houses. We need to be able to find a mechanism that they can purchase. We've talked about bringing a home buyers program and trying to save about $65,000 on the purchase and the skills trade, because we need the tradespeople to actually to do the work, to be able to build the homes that we need. We also need to work with our municipalities so that they can free up land, so that they can give tax incentives to organizations that want to build homes, so that it makes it cheaper for them to do it. You know, there's a lot of different things I think that all parties are providing at this point of ideas how to make housing better. And I think I'm more than happy to work with anyone that has a good idea in building homes here in Southwest Nova Scotia.
Okay, thank you. Ronnie.
So without a doubt, we're facing a housing crisis. I mean, when I sat as an MLA, almost every week somebody was in my office. Either they couldn't find a place to live, they couldn't pay their rent, or it was a senior living in a huge home who couldn't really afford to maintain it. Mm-hmm. So without question, housing has to be in the forefront. And while we want to incentivize the private sector to build homes, and the reality is, and I believe, that the private sector can't address the affordability side, because it costs too much to build, and a developer needs to be able to make back their money and make a profit, which that's what they're in the business to do. Mm-hmm. So government needs to step in, and I think our plan, the Liberal plan, is the most ambitious housing plan since the Second World War. Build 3.9 million homes by 2031. To me, the only way you can do it is by the government stepping in and partnering with non-for-profits and with cooperatives to try to lower the cost. So for me, I'm really proud of that plan, and I think that that's the way to approach it. The other program I'm really proud of is the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is building homes right now and cutting red tape. So okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ingrid.
Thanks. So I am a firm believer that a good job should be enough to get you a decent home that's the right fit for your family, whatever that is. And people are finding it harder and to afford the homes that they want and that they deserve. And younger Canadians, like millennials, like myself, Gen Z, we're losing the hope of ever even being able to afford a home. And the crisis has only gotten worse over the last few years. Corporate landlords are treating housing instead of as something that's a right. It's a way to make a buck, essentially. The cost of the average home has increased 89% in the last 10 years, while incomes have only grown 21%. And I've got another number for you. 76% of Canadians don't own their home. This is wild. So the NDP has wants to use every tool available to help people find the homes that they can afford. We'll stop big corporate landlords from buying up all the affordable homes. We plan to give nonprofits funding so that they can buy homes and make them affordable or keep them affordable. We also want to build rent-controlled homes on public land. And we're planning to support first-time home buyers with CMHC-backed mortgages. We'll also launch a massive home building program that will not only create jobs and keep our economy going, but of course, we'll also make sure that people can live in homes that they can afford.
Thank you. And just give you a chance for any rebuttals. Does anybody have comments? Go ahead, Brian.
No, you go.
I might as well jump in on the Housing Accelerator Fund. I think that's an excellent program, and the Liberal government has doubled that fund, and I know $4 million is coming to this district for I think it's Middleton, Yarmouth, and Digby. And what that fund does is basically provide funding for municipalities, towns, and cities where if they can show that they can cut red tape and lower requirements, then they get more funding to build homes quicker. So I think that fund is key for us as well to push affordable housing.
Okay. Chris?
Well, and it sort of goes to who's going to be building the homes. And I think what we continue to work with organizations like NSCC and those kinds of groups where we need to provide, a number of positions for skilled trades across the country. There's probably a need of 350,000 skills trade workers in order to build the homes that we need across Canada. We're looking at reinstating a $4,000 apprenticeship grant that the Liberal plan did eliminate. So we're continuing to try to find those opportunities that builds capacity in our communities to be able to do this. When you only have one or two different companies that can actually do it, they get maxed out. They can't build the buildings we need. For the millions of homes that we need to be able to ramp up, not just provide money, but be able to provide supports for those trade workers that are going to be building the homes for us.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay, and just to elaborate a little bit on this, because everybody was talking about the affordability and the affordability of rent and things like this. So some of the COVID initiatives, like the rent cap, are still around, in effect, but situations like rent evictions and tinkering with leasing arrangements have been used to push people out. What might be included in your party's plans to help protect tenants and to keep rent affordable? And let's start with Chris on that one.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, ultimately, we need to be working with our provincial partners. Provincial partners, of course, the organization that deals with landlords. We need to find that, again, I've been talking about balance a lot here, but the balance between finding that home and having organizations be able to take care of those homes at the same time. So there are stringent rules in Nova Scotia when it comes to landlords and what they can or cannot do, and maybe they're not as strong as they need to be. Maybe we need to be working with our partners in the province to be able to make that more effective and reasonable for the residents that we have, but also to try to find opportunities that those landlords and organizations that want to build homes have some mechanisms that they can deal with the infrastructure that they're actually putting in for our communities.
Great. Ingrid?
This is a topic that I'm passionate about. Like I mentioned, 11 years ago, I was a single mom working 3 jobs while living under the poverty line. Affordability is something that I know very, very well. I know the struggle of trying to afford groceries, utilities, and a mortgage without even talking about the extras on top of that. And so many Canadians and people in Acadianapolis are feeling the same struggle. We're working hard and we're watching those costs just spiral out of control. And the only ones winning in this situation with the grocery prices in particular are corporations and grocery CEOs taking in record profits. So the NDP and I are passionate about fighting for everyday working Canadians. We'll cut taxes for those who need it most, the middle class, the working Canadians. We have a plan to remove GST from essentials like groceries, home heating, and cell phone bills. We will also put a price cap on the groceries that you need so that the costs don't keep increasing. And like I mentioned earlier, building homes that you can actually afford. And as someone who's lived through financial hardship, I will not stop fighting until we can make life more affordable in our communities.
Matthew.
Well, I didn't realize how lucky it was. Growing up for a portion of my life in Ontario, they had an NDP government that put in rent controls and other provincial level changes at the Landlord and Tenant Board, which we don't have here in Nova Scotia. I don't know if there's a role for the federal government to encourage the provinces, but to do that, but that would certainly be helpful. We need to tie affordability to a percentage. You shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your income on a rented unit on housing. And when it comes to the broader issue of affordability, the Green Party believes that it's time to look at the issue of taxation. We've specifically stated and costed out changes to the that you should not pay income tax on the first $40,000 of your income. There's more details to that and other changes that I would do along with it, but that's the starting point. First $40,000, no tax, income tax on that.
Okay. And Ronnie.
As Chris said, most of the renters' protections are provincial. The rent cap, renter, landlord agreements, and all that. But what I'll say to that is, essentially, housing is a supply and demand issue. If you have a lot of people looking for rentals and there are few options, then the price will go up, and that's what we've seen. Even here in rural areas, that prices are going up, it's because there are too few rentals. So the solution, obviously, and I keep repeating, is to build more houses, to build more rentals. If you provide too much incentive on the demand side, which you have to do to try to provide some monies to people to be able to purchase their home or to get into the rental market, it does drive up prices. So you have to really approach it from a supply side. And that's why I think you have to leverage every possible avenue, from the private sector to cooperatives, and the government has to get involved. And I think that's, if we can all work together with all levels of government towards building more housing, I think that's the solution to lowering or at least stabilizing prices and rents. Thank you.
Any follow-up comments? Okay, so you know, I'm encouraged to hear the talk of working with provincial partners and trying to find common solutions. I think everybody has that kind of idea. Now, does your party advocate for the sale of, or at least the use of, Crown lands for housing development, and does that fit into your party's plans? And we'll start with Chris on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We have thousands and thousands of acres of land from one end of the country to the other. Some right here in Acadianapolis in Western Nova Scotia that we should be able to leverage to be able to build homes. Here's a piece of property for you. But we also have to work with the municipality who does the zoning to make sure that it's available for housing. So it's, again, working and trying to leverage with the municipalities who have the regulations in and around that. But absolutely, there is all kinds of opportunities. And some of it is actually existing buildings that the federal government has that you can actually renovate some of them to turn them into apartments. No different than what's happening in Barton with the project there, taking an old school and converting it into apartments. The issue we have lately, and we talked about some of the bigger, older homes that we have here, which could be taking on larger families and people that are interested in moving into our area, but the seniors that are there don't have anywhere to go either. As our population ages, we don't have the options for them to be able to go into apartments or go into different kinds of care as they get older. So again, it's a leverage piece where the federal government can provide incentive, but at the same time, we need to work with provincial and municipal partners to get these things done.
Okay. We're going to come to Ronnie next.
So the Build Canada Strong Housing Plan, as part of that plan, is to build on government land. And as was mentioned, it's to work with municipalities to cut that red tape, the zoning laws that limit, to go from single units to fourplexes, anything that can create more units. So essentially, the plan again is to focus on building houses, to invest government investments in cooperatives and non-for-profits, use existing land that the government use, and leverage that to get governments to cut the red tape that are creating a lot of the issues actually around building homes.
Okay, thank you. Ingrid, we're going to go in sequence this time.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that the NDP does have a plan to build rent-controlled housing on public land. I think the rent-controlled part is the part that's really important to keep those rents low and affordable for everyone. I also have firsthand experience with this. One of my employees could not find a place to live in Yarmouth, and so she ended up living with me for a couple of months. Because there's so few places to live here. There's so few apartments. And it's become a real problem, and it's not just in Yarmouth, it's all across our riding and all across our country, but it's something that I've felt personally and professionally. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Matthew.
The original question was whether we would have public housing on Crown lands.
Yeah.
And certainly from what I've heard from my colleagues down the table, it sounds like there's consensus on that. On this point, I'm going to use it to make another one, which is in my preparation and work for this. I don't actually know if that is true in our plan, and I'll just admit that. I'm perfectly fine to do that. That being said, whenever this comes up on the phones at the doors where I don't know something, I would rather tell you the truth than make something up.
Sure.
That's my
Appreciate
promise to you. You can visit my website, mpformp.ca, and get in touch. Text me. I will send you back the real answer, and you get the good one from me. Thank you.
Okay. So any follow-up comments from any of the candidates? All right. So moving on, each party seems to have some sort of a plan when it comes to first-time home buyers and making it easier for Canadians to get into their own home. Just be interested to hear, can you expand on what your plan is and what makes it the best possible option? So for this one, let's start with Ronnie on this one. How's that?
Okay. So the Liberal plan is essentially to remove the HST of first-time home buyers for new homes and substantially renovated homes. So that would be remove the HST for up to $1 million. So that would make it easier for first-time home buyers to put down payments and try to get into the home. So that is the plan for the Liberal Party.
Sure.
And that's in combination with like the housing side, where you're trying to offset that by building more homes, because I don't want to keep saying it, but the reality is if you put too much incentive on one side without taking care of the supply side, then you're just driving up prices, and then the only people that lose are the renters and homeowners or people trying to get into housing. So.
Sure. Chris.
Well, yeah, This is great. We've been talking about this one for about 8 months now in the House of Commons. There's been a robust debate on taking GST off of new homes. I think we're at 1.3 million. The Liberals are at 1 million. It's great to have our partner in this one. That we all think it's a great idea to be able to take that off. But again, there's more to it. Over the last number of years, the cost of homes have doubled because of a very difficult economy. It has doubled. Mortgages have doubled. So people are priced out of the system from an economy that wasn't well managed by the previous government. But here we are, where we're all saying, let's take that GST, or at least the two parties are saying, take that GST off of new home constructions.
Okay. Ingrid.
As I mentioned earlier, we do have a plan to support first-time home buyers with CMHC-backed mortgages. So that is our plan. I don't have all the details, but that is the NDP plan.
Okay. And Matthew.
I'm happy to say that if a bill comes to the House of Commons with the details included here tonight, that you'll see a Green MP voting in favor. And I would add to that we do need to get the real estate investment trusts out of and the taxation, the advantageous taxation that they receive needs to be eliminated. If we don't do that, it's the whole system just not going to work.
Okay. Perfect. Any follow-up comments? Sure.
The issue of capital gains has come along on this one on a number of places where people are not apt to sell their homes because of the extra tax that they would be taking on capital gains, where we've talked about, the Conservative Party's talked about, for those people that want to reinvest those capital gains in Canada, that they would not take the tax hit on that. And I believe that there's a number of other parties that talked about this as well. But when those investments come out and we want to invest them somewhere else, or they're looking at that option, a lot of seniors, especially that have run their own businesses and don't have access to a pension, have used their assets as their retirement. And the hit that the government was going to be putting forward in the fall was completely unacceptable to everyone. I mean, thankfully there was a reprieve in that when the new Prime Minister came in. But it was something that the Liberal government was going to be putting on Canadians. And capital gains, where a lot of us probably don't have that kind of asset, was largely impacting the sale of homes across the country.
Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
Just jump in there quickly.
Sure.
So the reason I think it's important for me to say a few words is that when Mark Carney took over the leadership of the party, in my mind, it was, essentially parties take on the tone and direction of the leader. And being an economist and focusing on the economy, I think that's where he did decide to make some changes around capital gains in other areas where we have to grow the economy and make sure that people can invest. So it is a different approach from a new Prime Minister, and I do support that.
Okay, great. Okay. Now we're going to move on to a little discussion that almost everybody's talking about everywhere, is affordability, just for our basic lives. And the first question is, what can the government of Canada do with respect to keeping costs down for basic needs like groceries, utilities, gas pricing? With the current tariff situation, is it going to get worse before it gets better? So let's start with Chris on this one.
I think it will get worse before it gets better. Again, the uncertainty in the markets is one that will impact the cost of everything that we consume, whether it's groceries or buying a new car or whatever you're going to be doing over the next number of it will probably get a little more expensive. And not just because of that, but because of all of a sudden this war that's going on between the U.S. and China. If we think of where our products come from on a consumer basis, they come from those two places. So we as Canadians probably will be affected quite greatly by those things. Again, we have to be able to negotiate with our American partners They have been partners with us and this continent for many, many years, and we should be able to find common ground on many of these issues. I'm not going to hold my breath for long on this one. But, you know, government has to be able to find ways to get out of the way to allow business to do their business. We are an energy superpower. We should be able to leverage that for the benefit of all Canadians, whether that is an energy pipeline across the country, so that you know, the molecules of energy that happen to be created in BC or Alberta or off of Churchill Falls can be actually consumed here in Canada or in Nova Scotia, so that it'll bring the cost of many things, the construction of things, the energy we use, be able to bring that down.
Okay, thank you. Ingrid.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a few things that the NDP is fighting for in order to make things more affordable. Cutting taxes is one for everyday working Canadians, while increasing taxes for millionaires and billionaires. Removing the GST from essentials like groceries, home heating, cell phone bills. And putting price caps on groceries so that they don't keep continuing to skyrocket. So those are the plans for the NDP.
Perfect. Matthew.
Yeah, so I mentioned the taxation in people's pockets. You know, they're going to get somewhere in the range of $3,000 to $4,000 more a year, and on that average income, and we think that's a good start. Long-term goal is to create a system of guaranteed livable income, and that will free people up to be able to afford their basic necessities. And I'd like to talk a lot more one-on-one or in smaller groups about the way that would be implemented. But that's what you would see from a Green MP.
Okay. Ronnie.
So affordability, I mean, when I was MLA or even back to when I was a municipal councillor, I mean, that's what you hear most often. And affordability obviously is tied with housing, but price of food, everything's going up. So the people I find that are struggling the most are seniors because of the fluctuation in the markets, the tariffs, everything else. The Liberal government announced that they would take a balanced approach where if a senior did have savings or RRSPs, they would lower the mandatory withdrawal by 25% so that seniors could leave that money in their RRSPs to defer income tax, but also to make sure that they don't lose too much on market fluctuations, which there are a lot of people that are scared right now, and I mean, I can fully understand that. The other aspect is the guaranteed income supplement. So the Liberal government's proposing to bring up the guaranteed income supplement by 5% for this year, which would amount to about $648 maximum tax-free. So that would, while it's not a huge amount of money, it's certainly when you're struggling, it does make a difference. So I was pleased to see that. On the worker middle class, they're proposing a middle class tax cut, or I should say we're proposing a middle class tax cut of 1% on the lowest tax bracket, which would provide roughly $840 for a family of four. So there are a lot of affordability issues. So yeah, again, you have to look at housing, you have to look at tax cuts, and honestly, you have to really look at support for seniors, which I feel there should be a lot of focus on that.
Okay. Any follow-up comments? Go ahead, Chris.
You know, I think our senior support net needs to be expanded. I mean, we need to be able to talk to those seniors at 65 to make them understand what their options are. I mean, we have heard many of the parties talking about what those tax brackets are going to be and how we can minimize the tax availability to those seniors to make things more affordable. The tax brackets themselves will make a big difference of lowering those from 15 to 12.75% to make those extra dollars go that much further. We also have to consider that we're still coming off a time of high inflation and the residuals of carbon tax. As we continue to flow into that, there's still a couple of challenges that I think will face seniors and face all Canadians on taxation, that we need to be straightforward on what kind of carbon tax or how the industrial carbon tax will affect the cost of products here in Canada.
Okay. Ronnie?
On the industrial carbon tax, I think it's important to talk about that issue. Is that so? If you want to ship anything to Europe, you do need to pay a carbon price in Canada. So either you pay it here or you pay it at the border. So it's a carbon border adjustment mechanism. So the way I think the industrial carbon price is a good idea, because what it does is it charges the businesses in Canada, then that money goes back into reinvestments into the businesses in carbon capture or investments that reduce greenhouse emissions. So the challenge is either you pay it at home and reinvest it, or you pay it when it crosses the border starting in 2027. So I think that's the reason why the Liberal Party is sticking with the industrial carbon price. And I think in the long run, it will lower greenhouse gases and emissions.
Go ahead.
We were talking about seniors. I just wanted to mention that the NDP does have a plan for seniors. We have a plan to bring in a national senior strategy to make seniors' healthcare a priority, to reduce isolation and tackle seniors' poverty. And we also, like the Liberals, have a plan to lift seniors out of poverty by increasing the guaranteed income supplement.
Okay, thank you. Great. Just to most of you have mentioned around taxation, as a mechanism to make it more affordable for families. And recently we had a 1% tax break, if you want to call it that, from the province on our HST. Just interested in what your view is on some of the mechanisms. Can we cut income taxes? Can we cap utilities? Can we remove GST, HST from our utilities? Are those things that your parties are willing to do? And maybe just a commentary on that. And maybe what we'll do is start with Ronnie on this one.
Yeah, so on the, I mean, obviously we want to see taxation as low as possible, but at the same time, there are a lot of programs that people depend on. Yeah. And a lot of seniors who are in a really low tax bracket or low income people don't pay taxes or don't pay very many taxes. So for me, I mean, it's a balance between supporting the middle class and providing tax cuts for them to be able to go through life in a way that they can, in an affordable way. But certainly you can't do that to the point where low-income people are struggling. So I always think of it as a balanced approach. You have to support the most vulnerable, and you have to support those that have actually built this country, which are seniors. Sure. So I'd like to see more supports for seniors and a balanced approach, maybe not less taxation or a reasonable amount of taxation versus supports. I mean, the Liberal Party has put a lot of programs in place that do help low-income families and individuals. The Canada Child Benefit, which has taken more children out of child poverty than any other program in history of Canada. I mean, we have $10 a day childcare, which allows people to go to work and put their children in daycare at an affordable rate. And we see the CDCP, the Canada Dental Care Plan, which for many is a cost saving and good for their health. So that's the way I see it and approach taxation.
Great. Ingrid.
You're welcome for the child care and dental care. I didn't hear the thank you, but you're welcome. Thank you. I'm a firm believer in lower taxes for the middle class, as my friend Ronnie here was talking about. But at the same time, we still need taxes because there are so many services out there that we need. We don't want to remove these services like free healthcare and you know, all of these really important things. So that's why the NDP is talking about, you know, a tax cut for the middle class while also increasing taxes for millionaires and billionaires who can afford it. And also removing the GST from things that I mentioned earlier, you know, groceries, essentials, cell phone bills, diapers, you know, we're still paying taxes on diapers, home heating, other essentials like that. So the plan is really to make the wealthy pay more, make the middle class pay less, so we can still have all of those great services that we have that make us Canadian. And
Carbon. We're going to need that. Income taxes on the lowest brackets should go down. Income taxes should go up on the much higher brackets. And I'm going to put out one other idea that I haven't heard yet, and I hope everyone hears it, is the corporate tax rate. It hasn't changed in some time.
There is the fishery. So what's in your plan that not only...
As you know, I was a lobster fisherman for 31 years. A lot of them, I think I can make a difference there. I have to have. So I think, number one, we have to push on the enforcement side. I think we need more enforcement. I think if we don't stop the illegal, unregulated fishery, the decision to put my name forward was to try to go into the government. If
the personal experience that's shared, I always value it. We're at the situation that we are stopping illegal fishing, but also, frankly, recognizing the treaty rights and on 4 years, election cycles, and possibly even thinking beyond political parties. It'll involve people stepping up and doing the right thing.
The fishery in Southwest Nova Scotia, to the point that we almost had a riot in 2020 that protect everything. They want to put in 10 more NPAs in the ocean and limit the fisheries in our areas, putting fishermen and fishers out of work. We need to back up. Total, we should have one set of rules, one way to do this, so that the department itself has an idea of what that stock is. If we do not take care of that lobster stock, we might as well close the wharves today. We need to do better, and I don't believe the Liberal Party
issue for the last several years. It's been a hot potato that ministers have passed around, and no one really wants to hold on to it. One thing that the NDP is really great at is when times get hard, we're there to fight for families and people who are hardworking Canadians, like all of the fishermen. I don't necessarily have all the answers as to how we're going to solve the fishery issue, but I'm committed to meeting with people and talking to them and finding out more. Indigenous fishermen.
Okay, thank you. And any follow-ups, Ronnie?
So what I'll say is I don't disagree that there was mismanagement in the fishery. And as I said prior, I've been quite critical of the approach that the government has taken. But for me, the question is, do I sit on the sideline or do I put my name in and try to make changes within? So you have to, fishermen themselves, as people who care about the industry, don't step forward and try to be part of the political system and explain what they see as the challenges and what are the possible solutions. Then we're just going to keep going the way we're going for years to come. So again, I don't disagree with a lot of the criticism that has been leveled towards the government, and I was part of that criticism. But again, you have to look making changes there. So.
Okay. Any other, Chris?
It's just what do we have on the table at this point? You know, I think we've been clear over the last number of months, if not years, that we have to have one set of rules. So we need to have seasons that are adhered to by all fishers. We need to allow the fishery officers to actually do their job. We have to have political will taken out of the department, because there's a number of avenues that I think the government has gone down to impact the enforcement that's actually been happening here. We need to actually have science-driven decisions made in the Department of Fisheries. And like I said, without the data that's coming from the unreported fishery, we don't know what the health of that stock is at this point. So there's a number of things that the department really has to do that it has not shown that it can do it or is willing to do it at this point.
Thank you. So just to elaborate on that topic, and Ronnie, I'm going to throw this to you to start, is we understand by Ottawa when it comes to the fisheries, and it never seems like we have a voice. So how specifically can our MP that represents this region have a strong voice in government to make something happen here? Because it hasn't happened in the past for a number of reasons, but what could you do personally to help ensure that the voice is heard?
Well, I think I can bring my experience as an MLA and as a fisherman to the table. I mean, obviously, there's 2 weeks plus left in the election, so we'll see what happens. But for me, if there is an opportunity to be in government, the voters will decide that for us. We won't be the ones deciding that.
Yep.
But oftentimes I feel like fisheries is forgotten, even sometimes in the media, sometimes by government. Even when I was at the table, is to be relentless and bring my point of view to the government so that they fully understand what the issues are and that they deal with it. And I can't guarantee you I can make those changes, but I can guarantee I'll fight for it.
Great. Ingrid?
Yeah, I agree. I think whoever amongst us is elected needs to be a strong voice for our constituents, for everyone here, including the fishermen, including the fishers, and I think just like Ronnie, if I'm elected, I will be that strong voice. I will be that relentless dog with a bone who will fight for the constituents here.
The angle of fisheries. It's really the big question, right? It's a question about whether our democracy in Canada works, and can one person make a difference? Mm-hmm. I'm skeptical within some of the old MP in those parties are. We're reflecting on the record of the previous Prime Minister and election under first past the post. Come on, guys. But to bring it back around, that voting system issue where we have consensus, stand up for our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chris?
Thanks for continuing this issue. I think one MP can do a lot, because you're able, through your network of MPs, whether they're on one side or the other, to be able to get the studies in committee, to be able to get the debate in Party of Canada. It's about the hard work of my constituents that worked with me and worked with Rick Perkins and with other MPs across. Are you not? The power of the MP is infinite a lot of times in that debate process. With this one in particular, there's been a lot of debate at the House, but there's been a lot of ignoring it by government.
Yeah, and not be cared for. And I think that's where some of this sentiment is coming from, is, almost, and that's my personal kind of injection there, if that's okay. But certainly we appreciate your comments. Any follow-ups from?
Let me just say something. The problem that we've run into, and I think this is probably over time, it's not just the last 10 years, it's probably over the last 20, fisheries part, where they have not gone to help develop fisheries. They have not gone into taking care of the fisheries that are important to us. They've focused on other things that are important as well. But we really need to be able to take the focus of that department and point it back to what it is intended to do, which is important to us, falls on deaf ears of the department itself. And I won't say it's political in this particular case. I think it's just the beast turned into something different, and we've got to be able to point it in a direction that we need as constituents in this area.
No, I appreciate that. So one more question, I guess, for the group, and we're fortunate to have some.
He's looking at restructuring DFO, looking at moving it closer to, as he says, to the wharves. So I think there is a huge disconnect with DFO from, and I'm not talking about the officers.
No, I appreciate that. Just one add-on question here is we're fortunate to have some young people from high school here today, and which is great. I'm what we've been talking about, the negativity sort of stuff, but how do you see the future for these young people, and how do you think we can create opportunities for young people to be the next political leaders and to get into politics and understand?
School, there was the Canadian government had an international exchange program, Canada World Youth, Jeunesse Canada Monde. Et je dois dire que c'est grâce à cet programme que j'ai compris qu'est-ce que c'était d'être un Canadien. It's because of this program Party of Canada is promoting is that we have a 100,000 strong national civil defense course, or core, I should say, that people from all across the country could join and to feel that they are connected and valued in their communities.
I was delivering some signs this week and had a request from a Nathalie Como in Clare for a sign, and gave her a call and didn't realize that she was my teacher when I was in high school, and she is a high school teacher. She's here tonight, and she was looking for signs from all the candidates. So I was overjoyed to talk to her because I haven't talked to her in years, and it was such a nice thing. Then this morning she sent me a photo of all of the signs that she had from the different candidates on the blackboard. So that was really lovely, and I posted that on our Facebook page today. Nice. So kudos to her and her students for being interested in politics and getting involved and coming here tonight. It's amazing. But yeah, I've been involved in politics for quite a long time. I worked for the provincial NDP caucus office 15 years ago for about 4 years as an outreach assistant, talking directly to constituents south of Halifax, through the Valley, through the South Shore, and in southwest Nova Scotia. And it was a great experience. And so I really encourage young people to get involved in politics. You learn so much, and every day is different, and it's always an adventure. And yeah, it's a great experience.
Great. Ronnie.
Yeah, I think, I don't want, Natalie's here, I'm going to mention her as well. It's just, she does deserve to be mentioned. Yeah. Civics in schools, I think, is so important. And Natalie is really getting her students involved, because what I've noticed, even from the municipal level or when I was MLA, you meet so many young people that are so impressive. They have leadership skills, they're intelligent, they want to get in, they just need opportunities, and they need somebody to kind of maybe push them in the right direction. And I mean, classes like Natalie and her students who really put the effort in understanding the system, how it works, how you make change. I think, we often wonder who's coming next, but it's very often I meet somebody and I'm so impressed by them that I don't think we have to worry. We have some good people coming behind us.
Awesome. Chris.
You said the leaders for tomorrow, but quite honestly, a lot of them are leaders today.
That's right.
They're already doing phenomenal things within the school system, within their communities, and they need to be supported in that. I'll mention Natalie too, because I think I've been to her class every year for the last 5 years, making sure that we speak to youth and make them understand for us to understand what their needs are, so that when we go back to Ottawa, that we're able to influence different programs as they go around. I'm a big supporter of a program called Civics, that's CIVIX, which is actually another program that goes into the elementary school. So you actually deal with kids that are in grade 4s and 5s, so that they understand the political system and what our communities are, how our communities are actually built, and how they can influence change in those communities. But we as governments also have to, and we, all of us here as adults in our community have to provide opportunity for them. We want them, of course, to stay in our communities. We want them to have opportunity. We want them to go fishing. A lot of them may make that decision. We have to have a strong fishery. We want them to go and be in skills trades. We want them to become nurses. We want them to become doctors. We want to be able to provide them with the best possible future. And I think working through organizations and schools and teachers like Natalie is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Natalie, the sign's in the truck. I'll bring it after the event.
Yeah. So that was our final question, but we want to give everybody a chance to have some final remarks. So maybe we'll start right to left this time, and we'll give Matthew the first floor here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I hope I've answered everyone's questions well and provided an idea what Green MP stands for and how they can stand up for their community. In my opinion, the ideas and views shared tonight are only the beginning. Democracy is what happens here on this stage, but also in the conversations that continue afterwards. It's the community organizing happens between elections, and also when we speak openly and honestly to each other and build trust between Canadians. In every election, there are always choices. Choices that are being offered, or the new ideas and new energy that are represented by the Green Party. I've said this to many people at the door and on the phones. I do respect the difficult choice that you may feel that you have to make during this election, but I'm also energized by how many people feel there's something worth supporting and having a Green candidate here, and I hope that you appreciate what the Green Party has to offer. I'm going to try to do something that politicians don't usually do and keep it short. Thank you again, and I always appreciate the opportunity to see everyone. I'll hope to see you at the doors and on the phones. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ingrid.
Thank you. So I'm mainly running just because I want to give voters another choice. It's not just a two-horse race between the red and the blue. And I want to give people a choice for someone who's just an everyday working Canadian, someone who has run a successful small business, someone who has been poor and knows what it's like to struggle to pay her bills, someone who has developed exceptional leadership skills through her entrepreneurial journey. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Someone who is resourceful and resilient, and someone who will fight for you and your family so that you can just live a happy, a safe, a comfortable, a prosperous life in Southwest Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Ronnie.
So first of all, thank you everybody for being here and for giving me the privilege to be here tonight. Being a candidate is a privilege. Living in a democracy, for me, is it's humbling and a privilege to have the opportunity to experience this. And in my life as a municipal councillor and as MLA, I've learned that everybody who puts their name forward does it because they want to make a difference. It's very rare that you see a politician or somebody running for politics that doesn't care about their community and their neighbors and friends. So when I put my name, that's exactly it. Like I'm sure everybody else, you run because you want to make a difference. And I have, in all my years, I've never really been a guy who makes promises, but all I can promise is that if I'm elected, I'll work hard every day for the constituents of this riding. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris.
Well, thanks everyone for your time and of course your attention today. Thanks to the Chamber for hosting this. You know, throughout my time as your Member of Parliament, I've seen the incredible strength and resilience of our communities across Acadianapolis. I've also witnessed the challenges that most of us are facing: rising costs, burdensome taxes, and a government in Ottawa that's out of touch with the needs of ordinary Canadians. You know, the stakes of this election have never been so high. It's time for a government that listens, that understands the struggles of working families, and that takes bold action to deliver real results. But it's not just about policy. It's about giving hope. Hope that we can rebuild our communities, we can restore our fishery and our industries, and create a future that's brighter for our children. A Conservative government will focus on the things that matter: a thriving economy, a safer community, empowering every Canadian to succeed. You know, the work of a member of parliament, and I know you're going to have a hard time believing this, but is difficult and requires lots of experience. It requires a knowledge of how government works, how to create a network of people to help solve the challenges that we have. As Deputy Speaker in the House of Commons and as your MP, I have that network already built and ready to go. I'm proud to have the privilege of representing this amazing riding in the House of Commons over the last 5 years, and I'm eager to continue that work. I humbly ask for your trust and your vote. Let's build a stronger and more prosperous future together. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to thank the four of you. It's one of those things where I'm always astounded that somebody puts themselves out there like like you're doing. It's a difficult position, but we really appreciate you coming here tonight, sharing your thoughts, sharing your party's policies, and what you would do if elected. So, and to me, this is truly Canadian because it's not everybody's a very positive person on stage and really presented that here. And I've said this to Chris in the past, you know, it doesn't matter about parties, it's the people. And I just want to give you all credit for who you are and what you're bringing to the table. So thank you very much. And we'll wrap it up there. I think he's given me the hook, so really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get a chance to mingle with the crowd here today. So, thank you.